Oh, Skies of Arcadia, the master gem of the GameCube era. Truly a work of art among RPG games, and outstandingly one of, if not the best RPG game I have ever played in all time, tied closely to Tales of Vesperia. In all my years of gaming, there has never been a game more nostalgic to me than Skies of Arcadia Legends. The feeling of crossing literal islands on air, finding hidden objects throughout the game, always fueled my interest. With so many possible discoveries hidden in so many objects, it's no wonder I found the game to be so addicting. And even though I never found all the discoveries in the game, something else about the game kept drawing me back. Something beautiful resonated within me when I played the game. It perhaps was the 3 layers added for 3D exploration, or perhaps it was the way the storyline fit so beautifully with the ability to freely explore the world and what it had to offer. Either way, I found myself engrossed with the game over and over again. I spent so much of my childhood and young adult years playing this game, and I began wondering just how far I could push the boundaries. How many ways could you beat the game? Well, today I'm going to find out. Can you beat Skies of Arcadia Legends with only the starting Moonstones of each party member and limited battles? In Skies of Arcadia, you can change the Moonstone during battle, which allows you to find an enemy's weakness to an element and level up that magic element faster. So I have to question myself here. If you never change the color of the Moonstone, it also makes it harder to learn your magic skills with different attributes. So if I set each character to their starting role, just how far could I get before losing my mind to a farming fest? I just had to know the ins and outs of the entire game. Determined to see this through to the end, I boot up my Nintendo Wii, insert my original copy of Skies of Arcadia Legends, and select New Game. Start off on my adventure in the world of Arcadia. Starting with the opening cutscene, we find Fina's ship under attack. We make haste to collect the supplies around the ship after taking out the first set of soldiers and make our way to the first boss. For those who don't know, the beginning of the game is very linear with no real secrets to find aside from a hidden chest in the back of the staircase behind your starting location. After we obtain that, we fight the first boss and make quick work of him. We go to the top of the ship and sail for our first discovery. It always interested me how the developers left little cookie crumbs across the landmarks and text found in discoveries and NPC dialogue. If you read over the pirate's grave, it actually can be deciphered who this grave belongs to if you traverse the world in the game and talk to the right people. Anyhow, before I proceed with the run, I want to cover the rules for this challenge while I showcase my horrible luck finding a Maraca shell or any other item drops in the early game. First, each character is set by default to have a Moonstone equipped to their weapon. Vice has the red Moonstone, Aika the green, Drachma the blue, and so on. For the entire game, no character is allowed to change their equipped Moonstone. In Skies of Arcadia, your character gains 2 times more magic experience based on the color of their equipped Moonstone. Fire magic for Vice, healing magic for Aika, and so on. While you obtain magic of other elements, it takes a very long time and countless battles to unlock those moves, unless you have the correct Moonstone equipped to your character. This means Aika will become our main healer, Drachma will be stuck as our main physical tank, Vice our AoE mage, and Fina will be, well, kind of useless. Considering her already low HP, attack, and defense stats, this is going to become very taxing, very fast, unless I grind a lot to unlock better magic for Fina, which I'm going to try not to do at all. In this run, we will be using limited battle runs, meaning once we get to Nazrad, we will no longer be fighting random encounters. A character's equipped Moonstone modifies any physical damage they deal to an enemy. Since all of Vice's attacks, including super moves, are physical, well, that means he's gonna be stuck with fire element damage all game. Since Maracas are resistant to fire-based attacks, the early game farming you're watching below felt so tedious. I actually grinded for 18 minutes to find a single Maraca shell. I actually managed to unlock my second magic skill for Aika before I managed to find a Maraca shell. That's how bad my RNG was this run. Since I normally don't have any trouble finding Maraca shells, I figured it would be better to just keep fighting Maracas until they dropped one. You're gonna laugh when you see the game footage coming up too. So, we make our way back to Pirate Isle, getting another Maraca shell along the way. Once we get to Pirate Isle, we buy some equipment, grab a Moonberry, and rest up to visit Shrine Isle. Thankfully, I won't have to grind too much more since I did spend so much time grinding early on. That just means progressing the story will be easier. We go to Shrine Island, and since we're already over-leveled for this section of the game, speed run through this dungeon. Of course, now the RNG wants to be in my favor, as I get 2 more Maraca shells. Again, we're already over-leveled for this boss fight, so we heal when necessary, and Vice finishes off the boss with Cutlass Fury. So far, no scrapes or bruises with both of our characters at level 7 before even meeting Drachma. I'd say we really won't have any trouble until we reach Nassar. So while I could show you all the game footage leading up to Nassar, I'll instead just relay to you what happened while the cutscene loads. We go to Sailor's Island with Drachma and collect the moonfish there to get one of the most valuable items for the early game from Maria's critter, Warrior's Rune, increasing half of Vice's stats and allowing us to sweat less and rest more. Traveling through Valua, we rescue the party and obtain the harpoon cannon. Baltor the Scary wasn't an issue, by the way. With the harpoon cannon by our side, we travel through the stone reefs to the kingdom of Nassar, and here's where the run gets a bit tough. Ayaka's Alpha Storm starts not doing much damage anymore, and I'm forced to start using magic after Fina joins the party. The issue here is that no one in my party knows any purple spells beyond the first level spell. Luckily, I made sure to grab a couple Crystallis boxes from the exotic merchant. With those at our side, we enter the Temple of Pyrene and encounter the first real issue with this challenge. Again, rather than showing you all the footage, I'll just tell you while the cutscene loads. We face the Magmatikis first, which are highly resistant to red moonstone and fire magic. The result is us having to use our Crystallis boxes throughout the entire dungeon. Aside from that, we have no deaths until the boss, which is the footage you're watching below. I walked into this fight not even realizing that winning was literally impossible without changing the color of my moonstones. See, the boss has 99% resistance to fire attribute damage. 99%! Vice literally hits this monster for 16 damage, more than once. Winning this fight without magic was impossible. As a matter of fact, since Fina was so weak, she died first, and with no way to revive my party, I had to reset. There was no other way. The second time I tried Cutlass Fury, but nothing worked. I was still only dealing 32 damage to this beast. I eventually gave in and opted to use Crystallis boxes the entire fight. And it worked. The boss fell in 4 rounds. I thought it would be more complicated, but I guess I was wrong. Crystallis is a bit overpowered in the early game, more than I gave it credit for. And with that, we finished the Temple of Pyrene without a panic attack. On top of that, we get another Ryzalem box, which is so good. Ryzalem is a high-level silver magic spell that revives a character with 100% of their HP 100% of the time. But the boxes break in 1 to 2 uses, meaning now we have 2 to 4 full revives should something go wrong in this run. With a bit of a challenge, we successfully retrieve the Red Moon Crystal and proceed to survive the fight with Rikumen. Thankfully, all we have to do is really beat Bailey's using the harpoon cannon on her twice. So, with that out of the way, we make it through the Red Moon lands out of Nassar, and now we can travel onwards to the kingdom of Iksataka, the beautiful lands of green, and my favorite land in this game. I just loved the environment, the forestry, the life in this game under the green moon. Something about Skies of Arcadia always sets my heart aflutter. With Belize's engine, we sail through the South Ocean and reach the kingdom of Iksataka. I was checking my menu on the way and completely forgot that Drachma's equipment was all removed when he rejoined the party. I hadn't even realized I was fighting with him at his weakest. Anyhow, once I adjusted his kit, I finally arrive at my favorite place among all of Skies of Arcadia, Iksataka. A literal jungle tribes made their home in the sky from. It isn't just the visuals either. The music in Iksataka is so good there are actually 10-hour loops on YouTube of its music. People have used it to study, to de-stress and relax, and I myself have used it to relax before bed or while taking a nap in the middle of the day. Every time I hear the flute, the drums, and the amazing soundtrack so peacefully mixed together, I'm taken back to the most restful time in my life. There is so much I could say about this region in the game, and this city. I love how beautifully the storyline connects too. Something about Iksataka just brings the whole game and sense of adventure to life. At least that's my opinion and thoughts on the game. Without Iksataka, Skies of Arcadia just wouldn't be what it is. It is this scene right here that brings the entire game's sense of adventure to life. The way all the characters' clothes shine and stand out in the environment only personify the individuality this game possesses. But enough about that for now. We go to speak to the Elder, where he explains to us that Valua set fire to the beautiful lands of Iksataka and took many prisoners to the Moonstone Mountain to farm moonstones for Valua. And with his infinite wisdom simply says, "You're a good kid. I like you. Here's the location of the lord of our land, which we just sacrificed many lives to conceal. Good luck, adventurer." Who are we but a merry band of air pirates? Nah, I'm just kidding with you. We burned Deloco's ship to the ground. After he self-destructs, we go to Moonstone Mountain. Those don't give us any trouble since there aren't any terrifying status effects in this dungeon, but status effects aside, the dungeon is just tedious since I couldn't remember how to navigate it. I kept falling into the carts and having to fight random encounters. But once I did make it through to the end, I had to fight Antonio too. Thankfully, because of the endless random encounters in this dungeon, we were over-leveled for this event, and succeed in defeating him with haste. We did have to heal up quite a few times with Sacres crystals and the like, but one final tackle from Drachma ensures our total victory. From there, it's back to the Little Jack, where we head to the King's Hut and find the Golden Man and the Great Bird, opening the way to the Lost City of Rexus. As an introvert, the Lost City of Rexus was always a breath of fresh air in my lungs. During each gameplay through the world of Arcadia, I found the silence, the forest critters, and the mist in the dungeon to be relaxing and unwinding. The music made it impossible not to want to sit down and take a nap, at least for me. For the era of the GameCube, Skies of Arcadia stood out as a unique gem that was unfortunately underwhelmingly sold. Anyhow, throughout this dungeon, we did encounter one serious breathtaker. I'm showing you the game footage below, but while I thought I wouldn't have any trouble, I did not realize that the enemies in this dungeon inflict stone with their normal attacks. I was actually a bit horrified when I realized there was no way to prevent this from happening. Since Aika's Delta Shield only prevents magic from being cast, this meant status ailments inflicted from normal attacks, such as Vice's poison with the Assassin Blade, are unable to be guarded against. And to my misfortune, the enemy team went first. I didn't want to chance running away and losing a turn since my last save point was tens of minutes away and I had already done so much exploration, so I decided to tough this fight out. Unfortunately though, that backfired. Hard. I tried my best to fight back, but I couldn't move fast enough to do anything. The enemies in this dungeon simply have more speed than my party. In the end, I was fortunate enough to get lucky with Fina's low quick stat and still get away. Your chances of escaping from combat are based on the character's quick stat, that is, the one performing the action, so yeah, really lucky there. The rest of the dungeon is a breeze, and with some Glyph of Might power enhancers, we finish off the boss monster without trouble. Though I did get lucky and avoid all panic status effects from the boss, so there's that. For the most part, the game seems to play as normal. I'll be honest, I wasn't sure how difficult this challenge would be getting into it, but after seeing the difficulties in dealing damage, I have found that the best solution is to prioritize who will be used for items and who will be used for attacking. And while you may think this is a viable solution now, that's only because we haven't encountered lots of enemies who use magic yet. I didn't show the game footage of it happening, but I've actually had several characters KO'd already by Eternity spells. So with that being said, soon we'll have Aika spending her turns using Delta Shield, meaning we'll be down a Greenstone player. Next though is Deloco and Grendel, the horribly long boss fight in the Little Jack. Grendel's natural defense is fairly high for a Gigas, but what makes this fight so long and drawn out is its HP pull. For your convenience, I've cut out the long wait times in these two fights. In order to beat this boss fight, I must first survive his onslaught of strong damaging attacks, then reduce his HP enough to end the fight with the harpoon cannon, which took me 45 minutes between the two bosses. I'm being dead serious. And by the way, I decided not to use Captain Stripes at all this entire run, staying true to the limited encounters concept. Without every party member knowing Sacres and entering this fight with already low MP, this fight against Grendel was a disaster. Aika and Fina are my only forms of healing with Sacres in this fight, and on average, Grendel is dealing 3,200 damage a hit if I don't guard. Typically, Grendel attacks twice a turn, but before I can even get to Grendel, I first have to fight against Deloco and his abominations. His hand cannon and torpedo alone are dealing to me 3,000 damage. I'm forced to use most of my MP in this fight just to heal, and if I don't guard against his test cannon, I take over 6,000 damage. Oh, and did I mention this guy's armor is almost as strong as Grendel's? The only way to deal any real damage to this guy in this fight is to bide your time and wait to fire the harpoon cannon at him. And you might say, well, Eric, can't you just use your other cannons? Yes, except the only cannons that will deal any significant damage right now at this point in the game are the main cannons. The main cannons are adjusted by your character's strength stat, and since we don't have much, we're not able to do much damage to him. In order to defeat him, you have to fire the harpoon cannon not once, not twice, but 3 times unless you want to spend turns taking pop shots at his airborne tank. If there was one thing I would nitpick about in Skies of Arcadia, it would be the ship battles and their long wait times and lack of player balance. But, all that aside, Grendel is even worse than Deloco, because Grendel takes no damage from any sources except the harpoon cannon. At least none near large enough to be worth attacking with. Since we already have limited spirit right now, we're best just waiting to fire the harpoon cannon. See, since Grendel's HP pool is nearly 10 times higher than Deloco's, the only method of dealing any damage to him is to use the harpoon cannon. The damage you would take in return for literally any other action is not even worth it. Grendel isn't the worst boss fight in the game, but oh my gosh, is he the longest boss fight. There is literally nothing you can do to speed things up except pass your turns and wait for him to take damage once from the harpoon cannon before you can knock him off the cliff. Now, the other option is to grind so much your main cannons do enough damage to offset the difference, but come on, who wants to spend hours grinding in a game where you can just defeat him with a harpoon cannon anyway? Since much time was lost on this fight, I'll fast forward to the next events for you. We return to Horteka before heading out to Valua for the Yellow Moonstone. Rocknum shows up where we get separated from the Little Jack and wash ashore the abandoned isle. Aika winds up in Nasrad where soon we return as Vice, and it is here we obtain one of the most helpful items in the game, the Stealth Ring. This is also where we will avoid all random encounters throughout the rest of this run. The Stealth Ring gives us a nearly 99% chance of escaping from battle by running away. Not only that, but it allows Vice to outspeed some of the opponents that will be coming up soon. With this new item in my inventory, I can finally rest easy and not have to deal with the tedious level grind, allowing me to really get a feel for just how hard this challenge would be if I didn't have to fight wild encounters. Which is why, for the rest of this challenge run, I'll be doing a mandatory combat run only. This will mean no more upgrading our magic skills or requiring item drops from random enemies. What we have is what we have for the rest of this run. I did forget to avoid random encounters at first, since I was so focused on enjoying the game and reliving the nostalgia I had, but aside from a couple of levels, we stay mostly the same stat-wise. Finally, we make it to Valua where we obtain the Delphinus. As usual, Fuguro's no problem, and upon revisiting the Delphinus again, I was overjoyed at the incredible texture and detail the developers put into the ship. Keep in mind, this is a GameCube game. I felt like I was playing Dungeons & Dragons again, but when I realized just how much quality the developers intended in their design to allow the player to explore the ship, talk to crewmates, see each NPC at work, and actually be visually impressed with the atmosphere, I was reminded why this game was my favorite game of all time. Because the developers put effort into making the game immersive. Without all the detail added into this game, you wouldn't really feel like you were an air pirate captaining your own crew. The ability to fly your ship around and explore to your heart's desire is what made this game so liberating to play. It wasn't just the environment you encountered either. It was the entire gameplay that blended so well together, and the color design of the ship and the world you got to explore going forwards just blew me away. But before we can proceed, we're stuck. Actually, we're unable to leave Pirate Isle through Nasrad at this point. Since the Delphinus can't travel through rocks or sky rifts yet, we have to find 100,000 gold another way, since battling is off limits. And yes, I did say 100,000 gold. When we get to Crescent Isle, we're asked to magically produce 100,000 gold for the base before we can leave the Nassar Kingdom. And you might be thinking, Eric, you said you can't grind any more wild battles, right? How are you going to get 100,000 gold? And that, my friends, is where a secret to this game's hidden quest comes in. Remember Decat's coin we got from defeating the dungeon? Well, that particular coin can be sold to one informant in the guild for 20,000 gold in Nasrad only. We already have 30,000 gold on hand, so that puts us at needing 50,000 more gold. I sell everything I own that isn't equipped aside from my healing items and the like, and end up at 70,000 gold, just short of 75,000. With nothing left to sell and no way to grind wild enemies, the only solution left is to either collect 1,000 fish in-game for money, or else find discoveries and hope I make enough. Problem with that idea, though, is that most of the discoveries were already found by Domingo, the famous explorer. See, in Skies of Arcadia, the longer you wait to find and report a discovery, the less you get paid and the higher chance Domingo will find it first. If that happens, you can kiss any chance of making a living finding discoveries goodbye. However, at this point in the game, there is just one discovery that Domingo will never have found. And that discovery is our ticket to progress through the game. The Ruins of Rolana. These ruins will sell for 6,000 gold, bringing our total to just over 75,000 gold. Fast forwarding from there, the fights are against the Gregorio and his fleet, but the Delphinus in the early game is pretty much invincible, so no issues there. Traveling through the Dark Void is much the same. A well-planned setup with the Moonstone cannon lets us hit all of our cannons at once, eliminating the fish in the Dark Rift. The Yapotoma ship fights follow suit. It is then, though, that we enter Yapotoma. And oh my, are the graphics and scenery of Yapotoma incredible. The studio and game developers, when creating this section of the game, did a splendid job on their research. The lore behind Yapotoma is that the city was built surrounded by sky rifts, which resulted in them being an isolated nation. This was done to mirror the concept of Japan being on the seas, and according to history across the regions of the world, strangers ventured onto the land. The hairstyles are even set to mid-Edo period of Japan and China. Their clothes and kimonos, and even the structure of housing resembles the culture of both, reflecting the Asian culture of even the elder sibling learning responsibility to look after or teach the younger from a young age. While the graphics here are beautiful, and as an introvert I love the nature and running water, I do find the culture to be very finely placed in the world of Arcadia. The distinction in culture makes me feel like I truly did discover a new continent beyond the edge of the world. The immersion level I felt when I reach Yapotoma every time never ceases to amaze me. And yet, despite all the amazement, I still find this single boss fight, and I always have, very, very tedious. And this dungeon, by the way, has enemies that are officially outspeeding me 50% of the time. So I have to wait until I get hit by 3 Pyrums and a sleep state to be able to act every other battle. It was getting insane. I had to heal after every 4 random encounters. And when I got to the boss, oh, the boss. See, this boss has 4 skills. Ice Storm, which does massive damage to everyone in your party, which happens about 10% of the time. Wevlin, which happens about 40% of the time. Steel Skin, which makes him completely invulnerable for an entire turn about 10% of the time. And Sacrulin, which he uses 5% of the time. The rest of the time he attacks normally, which has a high chance of inflicting stone on the person being attacked. In this fight, this happened to Enrique 3 times. This means 35% of the time he's attacking normally, 45% of the time he's hitting at least 2 members in the party, 10% of the time he's attacking your entire party, 10% of the time he's not attacking any damage, giving himself another chance to roll the dice, and Sacrulin heals his health back to full. Sacrulin heals a single target fully. Now mind you, this boss takes a measly 27 damage from Vice's normal attacks and only 327 damage from Cutlass Fury and Crystally's boxes. This boss fight can last anywhere from 4 minutes to 45 minutes depending on RNG. To my amazement, the cat's sword comes in clutch and puts him to sleep. I didn't even know this boss could be put to sleep. I used the entire time charging my spirit and buffing the party before unleashing Pirate's Wrath and attacking with Enrique and Crystally's boxes. And wouldn't you know it, after he wakes up that turn, he doesn't even act. So I use another Cutlass Fury in Crystally's boxes, and guess what he does with his health? Officially at 50% HP, he attacks normally. I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw this. So I use a Kyria Crystal and continue my Cutlass Fury barrage when he uses Wevlin. Another free turn. Another free turn. Knowing I'll run out of items if I don't end this fight soon, I pray for good RNG as I attack with all 4 characters using Crystally's boxes and Cutlass Fury, and he goes last this turn. Despite not finishing him off, he uses another Wevlin. I couldn't believe the RNG luck I got in this fight. I saw my chance and immediately went all out. And to my amazement, despite being underleveled and outsped throughout this dungeon, we managed to defeat the boss, even if only barely. When his HP drops to 0, he literally explodes, making this victory feel all the more satisfying. I couldn't believe the RNG luck I got at the end. I mean, it was just outstanding. With another boss down, that brings our total crystal count to 3. I'll be honest with you, I was not expecting this to be so easy or difficult. And unfortunately, our troubles only grow from here. Now comes the second longest ship fight yet, Blueheim. Skies of Arcadia, your main cannon's power is determined by the power of the person firing the cannon. As I've said before, Fina does the least amount of damage, Aika the second, Vice the most, and so forth. We are so underleveled for this fight, our main cannons are not dealing any significant damage with Vice. That means between healing, which by the way, I used all of my healing items in this fight for, buffing the ship, saving spirit for the Moonstone cannon, and attacking with Vice, I had to wait a lot of turns. Like, a lot of turns to end this fight. 25 minutes to be precise. Thankfully, with enough patience, I managed to finally, after 2 Moonstone cannons and some pop shots, end this madness. But since I'm not yet able to grind anymore, I haven't unlocked Sacralin, meaning I have no way to restore my ship to full HP at this point in ship battles in the game. The frustration I was feeling came mainly from that fact. After heading back to Yapotoma and stocking up on some items, we head back to Crescent Isle. And this beautiful island is where I spent much of my time in Skies of Arcadia in the past. I would sometimes go near the pond just to watch the fish, listen to the music, and take a nap. Of course, I had to develop it first by pumping more money into the island, but considering the recent upgrades, I'm already pleased revisiting the memories of this base I had as a kid. Now, we did return to Sailor's Island and feed all the moonfish we gathered so far to the critter. And I got the white map! I completely forgot this item existed in the game. You can get it on rare occasions from item drops from monsters, but it's easiest to get it here. The white map cuts random encounters in half and gives us close to a 96% probability of escaping from battle. Since it cuts the encounter rate in half, I'm less likely to be KO'd by enemies who go first, so I opted to use the white map for the remainder of the run instead. The ice dungeon isn't troublesome with the white map, so there isn't really anything to show except the boss fight. Wow. All I can say is, wow. At my level, it felt like I was facing a bonus encounter in any normal RPG. Jeez. Death laser, death laser, death laser, avalanche. After a long and tedious battle of casting Horizon, almost half the battle, since it was the only revive spell I had unlocked, I finally defeated this pest of a boss. And normally it wouldn't even be that hard because I would be dealing more damage, but this was tough. The Mob Tartarus is just a ship fight, so I won't be showing any of the footage leading up to Dangrel Island. I did try to fight one of the hardest bosses on the wanted list, just to see how strong my characters really were at the time, and, well, you can see how well that went. Daikokuya isn't even the hardest boss in the game, and this combat had me terrified for the next few. He was way too strong for me to even survive 4 turns against. It didn't take me more than 1 defeat to realize I was outclassed. I admitted defeat and restarted the game once Enrique got confused and that very turn defeated. After modifying the Delphinus, we get Fina's ship back and make it to the Silver Moon Shrine where we fight another version of the Sentinel from the early game. The fight is about the same, so no issues there, but the fight right after that gives us quite a bit of trouble. Normally, I would be able to survive Fuguro's attacks. Yeah, he was still strong, but I never got one-shot by him before. It was honestly terrifying when I realized he could actually OTK my entire party with random fire. And wouldn't you know it, RNG was not on my side in this fight. I'd like to say I managed to waste him after he put pause to his onslaught of super moves, but that would be a lie. Fugoro's health pull is huge, and my attacks are dealing an average of 700 damage apiece, which comes out to about 4% of his maximum health. And all the while, I'm running out of Sacrum Crystals because I completely forgot to restock them before this fight. I actually started to panic because I realized the only person with free magic AoE spells is Aika. And since Fuguro was dealing roughly 1700 damage to each party member a turn, I would need to heal 2000 HP or 2 Sacrum spells just to survive. So I decided to prepare a turn and let Fuguro deal all the damage he can before I heal so I can guard each turn going forwards. And wouldn't you know it, Fuguro has nearly the same speed as Gilder, so deciding who goes first is a range. Meaning sometimes Gilder goes first and sometimes Fuguro goes first. In this case, the game had Gilder go first and I wasted a Sacrum Crystal. And of course, Fuguro uses another random fire super move. I decide if this fight drags on any longer, I'll be at a loss and have to start over, so I use Aika to heal and use all my items to attack. And finally, Fuguro uses a normal attack and misses. On his next turn, he does another attack? That's rare. Okay, sure. Then random fire, I expected as much, but certainly he wouldn't. No. Another regular attack? On Fina, no less. Wow, how this fight turned around fast. But then he uses cannon fire, which I was expecting would happen again at some point. I did stock up on 34 Rhizolum crystals for the rest of the game though, so we're good there. However, I am down to my last Sacrum Crystal, and since I have to spend the turn reviving Fina, I expect I'll have to use it. And with one more random fire, I do run out of Sacrum Crystals. Pirate's Wrath gets me close to victory, but not before Fuguro trolls me yet again with another random fire. But this time, the game decided Gilder would go second, not first. The range this time actually won me the fight. I couldn't believe how lucky I got. Even with Gilder being downed in the last round, I was still able to win because Rhizolum crystals restore him to full HP. Vice's complimentary remark, "Ha! That was easy!" made my eye twitch at the victory scene. That was the first time I ever wanted to punch Vice in the face. I realized after the fight was over, I did not have anything equipped to Gilder either, and that's when I realized if I did have something equipped to Gilder, he would have outsped Fuguro every time, ensuring my defeat, not my victory. I realized I needed the range to win this fight, and while it was tedious and a bit of a nerve-wracking battle, it just turned out that my accidental forgetfulness to re-equip his armor back to him worked in my favor. With Fuguro defeated, we make it to the remaining 3 bosses in the game. Galshan, who is up next, and Ramirez, who is the final boss we have to fight twice back-to-back with no time to heal. Next up is Galshan, the second to last final boss in the game. And wow, was he a disappointment. Turns out if you just use Delta Shield every round, he'll spend his turns casting magic or else attacking one party member at a time. And with enough Rhizolum crystals and Sacrum crystals, defeating him was honestly underwhelming. I expected more from Galshan. But the same cannot be said for Ramirez, and oh boy was this fight insane. I never actually beat Skies of Arcadia before, since as a kid I couldn't figure out how to navigate through the final dungeon. For whatever reason, my kid self didn't think to look at the map in 3-dimensional forms. But anyhow, Ramirez is no joke. He is as strong here as he was in Nasrad, and since we're about the same level, his damage output is also about the same. Worst part about this? You have to fight 3 boss fights in a row. 1 ship fight and 2 forms of Ramirez back to back with no healing. Defeating the first form of Ramirez, though, was simply a matter of waiting until he used magic or deep up the team to deal damage and defeat him. The second form, however, was much more concerning. If I could describe this final boss fight in one word, it would be unpredictable. And that alone is scary. Final form Ramirez has one of 5 primary skills he uses, and the one that concerns me the most is Silver Nightmare, which is a hyper priority move, meaning it always goes first before any other ability in the game, even your own team's. It forces the targeted character to use a single damaging super move on the entire team. For Vice, this could be any one of 3 moves, and since Gilder only has one, Gunslinger, Silver Nightmare takes away the action of the targeted character for the round, and if you bump that character's attack, it deals massively more damage to the entire team. I learned the hard way when Vice used Pirate's Wrath on Fina with increased attack power that fighting this boss without increasing your stats is the safest bet, at least at our level. Too much was at stake, so I refrained from most of this fight from buffing my team after I learned the hard truth. At any moment, I could get a game over from my own ally. Truly a nightmare. His next attack is Silver Binds, which obliterates a single target. At my level, there is no surviving this attack unless it's Gilder or I guard. And yet having my HP reduced to 0 in one attack like this never felt so good. I am in love with Ramirez's super moves, and watching them animated like this felt so satisfying. Ramirez has other moves, but for some reason decided to use Drillnos again, and I opted for Aura of Denial on Gilder every turn, and to just try to win with Vice using Pirate's Wrath instead. I expected another Silver Nightmare or Silver Binds, but Drillnos? Okay, sure. But that didn't do anything, so I expected him to... Drillnos? Okay, this is definitely odd. He opts for Drillnos 3 turns in a row. I'm gonna be honest, I know even if he did use Silver Nightmare or Silver Binds, as long as I don't buff any party members, I'd survive. But despite the incredible RNG I was getting, I did get hit by a Silver Binds on Vice, and I thought if he just used Silver Nightmare next turn, my entire team could be on the fritz. And I was sure Vice was going to be OTK'd by this attack, so I prepared for the worst when he didn't die? And he critically attacked. Now I just needed Ramirez to not use Silver Nightmare next turn to survive, and I could possibly beat the game. But he uses... No. He uses Eternum? I didn't use Delta Shield, though, so this is going to... Wait, what? What? He didn't die? Aura of Denial is only supposed to block adverse effects. The text explicitly states only adverse effects. Death isn't considered an adverse effect, but it blocks it anyway? That's incredible! Ramirez opts for Silver Nightmare on Vice, and Rain of Swords does little to no damage to the entire team, so I'm completely safe there. I can't believe Aura of Denial blocks death. Had I known this, I'd have been using it every fight up to this point. And again, he opts for Drillnos, which is blocked by Delta Shield. With our buffed Gilder and Vice at the ready, the final round is here. Aika uses Delta Shield to protect the team from magic. Vice uses Cutlass Fury to set up Ramirez for the finishing blow. Ramirez retaliates with Destruction. Fina deals the finishing blow with a Crystalline Fox. To my amazement, I successfully defeated Ramirez with only starting Moonstones and limited battles. And with that, we beat the game at level 36. Skies of Arcadia Limited Battles Challenge Run is officially mission complete. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. This took me a lot of time to make, over 40 hours of gameplay to be precise. Coupled with the video editing and my full-time job, I worked night and day to finish this video. It would mean a lot to me if you liked, commented, shared, and if you're not already subscribed so you can stay up to date with my next challenge run video. And definitely make sure to leave a comment letting me know what challenge run or game you want me to play next. I'll be seeing you all soon. Until next time, Eric out.